cranking up on the throttle, victory is mine. Show you the harder the battle, harder I fight. I've come too far to quit. Step back, I'm going in. I'm cranking up on the throttle. This is how legends are made.
How's it going, y'all? Welcome to Justice for America. We'll be discussing the intentional distractions from the elite-controlled media, why they want us distracted, how they are doing it, and what they are distracting us from. I know everybody has seen over the past few months, the Johnny Depp trial. I don't know how that's even relevant to any of our lives, but the media thinks it's important for us to pay attention to it and distract ourselves. Being with everything that everyone's going through right now, it's easy to distract unhappy people. And, so of course they've come up with different ways to distract us and divide us, like the Roe versus Wade. Of course, COVID ended at the beginning of June. Once Pride Month started, they're going to continuing to try and socially engineer us and manipulate our societies, and to where we're always distracted, we're always divided, against issues that actually matter, like paying attention to the WEF meeting back in May, where the elite all got together to plan our future and decide what's best for us, even though they're so out of touch with our everyday lives, for the blue collar workers. They think that it's best just to keep us distracted, so we don't know what they're up to and what they're doing. And we're going to get into how they're doing it, and what our research has come up with is they're all controlled. They own the media. They have the power to control what goes out across the media for all of us to see. And I'm going to bring on our co-host Anjanette, and she's done a lot of research into this, and we're gonna discuss everything that she's found out and show you guys the proof. We're going to get into the WEF, the World Economic Forum, which is the elite of the world, and start breaking down who these people are, what their intentions are, and most of all the transition that every single one of them are talking about. Hey, Anjanette. I know you've done a lot of research into the media and the elite that control them. The big six companies that own all of the media, or almost all of it, like this article says. Who are those big six companies?
So when I looked into what I really essentially wanted to do was look into who owns all the media. People talk about mainstream media. Well, who and what is in our mainstream media, and who owns them? Who pays mainstream media? Who's financially backing these media companies that bring us the information that we listen to regarding everything in our world, from pandemics to sports to weather. Who are these people and who pays them? So I started to look into that, and that's when I discovered that there's something that they call the Big Six. And the Big Six is a media conglomerate of six major media companies or corporations. They're listed as one is National Amusements. This is the one and only private company that's one of the six media conglomerates. National Amusements was started by a family that goes by the last name of Redstone. Currently, Summer Redstone is the person that is the CEO and owner, if you will, of this company. His father is who started National Amusements many, many years back. This is the only private company, and almost all of National Amusements assets, or investors, if you will, companies that are exclusive to National Amusements is Viacom and CBS. They make up more than 80% of National Amusements assets. So as you can see on the video that's scrolling, anyone can screenshot and expand that, but you can see all of these are the individual media outlets that National Amusements owns. So any of the media outlets you see on this list, you can see there's MTV there, Spike. There's quite a few on there that I'm sure most of us are familiar with, CW. And these are the ones that are owned by National Amusements. Again, a private company that was started by the Redstone family, and the bulk of media that they support is Viacom and CBS. Second on the list is one I'm sure everybody's all heard of. I can't imagine anybody in the entire world hasn't heard of this media conglomerate, which is Disney. The CEO of Disney is Bob Iger. One of the things we looked into with Disney was, again, Disney has an enormous amount of channels, if you will, that people subscribe to, that they own. Things you couldn't even possibly imagine. I mean, you can see the list here. Lifetime Movie Network, all the ESPNs, ABC, all of these, A&E. I mean, it's incredible. They own an incredible amount of networks that you can see. So Disney owns these channels that you can see listed. Huge amounts of channels that they list. So you have to remember, coming from the perspective of if these are the channels that Disney owns, these are the channels that Disney makes movie experiences and TV series experiences for all of us to watch, and whatever information they want to bring forward that's happening out in the world today, they'll bring forward through ESPN and ABC Family and ABC News. And you can see all of these ones that are listed here in this diagram. I mean, these are the outlets. They'll bring you all of your information. A&E, it's incredible. ABC Daytime, ABC News, FYI, LMN, Pixar, Marvel. So there's all your superhero films that the kids love so much. These are the channels that they'll be bringing your information to your home through. So yeah, they're a huge portion of what influences the media.
What influences us, our kids, the next generation.
Yeah.
They're using these people, and you can trace it all back to what these companies are doing. It aligns right with what the WF is doing, and the WF. You go look at what their action plan is for this year, and you look at their action plan, and it talks about climate change. It talks about diversity across the world. They're using these media outlets to influence the next generation, and to being okay with one world government. That we should bring in sexualizing our children into these cartoons and other things that kids and teenagers watch, into manipulating how they're going to see society in the future, and just how they're going to live their lives, and what they're going to be okay with happening in the world.
Correct. Yeah. And one thing I want to emphasize, with us here at Justice for America, we don't have any dispute with people who disagree with each other in their viewpoints and their mindsets and their values, of course, for family and for self. But the key thing to remember here is that we're all free to be able to make those decisions. It's important that the media stay neutral to all types of issues, like what we're seeing in the media now with Roe versus Wade and the Second Amendment rights with regard to the ownership and possession of firearms, which we're all afforded to by our right as American citizens through the U.S. Constitution, and all the other amendments and information in our Constitution that we're all afforded rights to, and that includes free speech. So, it's important that all these media outlets are there and have that capitalistic approach to be able to make money for their companies and put out information that is so salacious that it draws the viewers in and brings up their ratings. I mean, and therefore brings up their revenue. And that's what capitalism is all about. And it's amazing. But when you get to this level that we're seeing here, that we're going to begin to unravel for the folks to see out, in the world that may not be aware of how this is all working, that we've uncovered, you can see where we're going to get to the point where we can demonstrate that all of these big six media conglomerate corporations are all essentially through a second tier layer owned by the same group of people and the same group of investors. So all of these stations and channels, this big six media conglomerate, look like they're separate businesses and separate media entities, but they're essentially owned and controlled by all those same top investors. So the media essentially is owned and controlled by the same investors. There's no diversity in that. Their portfolio is diverse with regard to all these stations they own and these companies they own, but it's all the same people owning all of it and influencing all of it. And
right. Didn't Trump come up in like 2013, in 2017, 2018 or something, to come out and stop an acquisition of a company because it was going to give them too much power?
Yeah.
What company was that?
I'm not sure. I have to look that back up.
Sure. Okay. I didn't know if you had that up.
Yeah, no, I'll have to look that back up. But that's exactly right. And I think it rolled back to, it was something that one of these big companies was going to acquire, but then had to cut it loose because Trump wasn't having it because of that reason. We'll find that.
Yeah, we'll find that. But the point is these companies, they have too much power. They have too much influence over us. There's 6 companies that control our media. There's 10 companies that control our food supply. And they're all associated with each other. So they really, they have control over everything. Every single thing. And Time Warner being one of them. Time Warner is actually owned by, it's one of the companies owned by AT&T.
Yes. In the big six, Time Warner is listed, but in the date that this article you have listed came out, AT&T hadn't yet purchased Time Warner, because AT&T purchased Time Warner this year, actually in 2022, just a couple of 2-3 months ago. So this is a new article per se, but up to the last couple of months was when AT&T formally made the acquired Time Warner. So now AT&T has now absorbed all of the channels that were owned by Time Warner, which you can see on this list. Everyone knows Hulu, CW. I mean, you look at Time. If you look at these lists, they go through these. Then they show the music and internet channels they own, or internet providers they own. But you can go back and look. There's CNN, every form of CNN, Cartoon Network, Castle Rock, Adult Swim, Hulu, Turner. So you can see TNT, TBS, HLN. I mean, you can see this list here. These are all the corporations that Time Warner had that are now absorbed by AT&T. So AT&T now has control over all of these media stations as well. True TV. I mean, these are really common channels that most people watch, most households watch. Families watch these channels and watch the shows on these channels, especially the commercials, and all the commercial programming is, of course, geared toward the agenda that the owner of those channels want to have put out. It's like, for example, if you open up a clothing business, you have a style of clothing, whether it be beach wear to formal wear to casual wear to lounge wear to athletic wear. I mean, you have a brand, a style and type, so that you can advertise properly and sell your items, but you own a brand. And it's just the same for the people that own these channels. They want their brand or their agenda or their brand, if you will, their philosophy, what message they would like to send out to the world. Those are the types of programming that they're looking for, the programming that will help push their thoughts, their agenda, their truths that they may have for themselves forward into the world. So this is where we have to look at this. You know, when every time you tune into any of these channels that are ascribed to or owned by one of these big six companies, you're going to have some reasonable level of influence from those that own these companies.
Yeah, no, and it's been happening for a long time. You know, if you look into the Rockefeller family, you know, John B. Rockefeller Sr., he hated when people would talk about it. You know, if some opinion got out, some newspaper article came out and said, something negative about this guy, he sent somebody in by the company. And at the same time, back then they didn't have the internet. It was 100 years ago. And he would print out these pamphlets and send them to every house in the country to make himself have a good name again. And this is something that they're still doing. They're playing the Rockefeller playbook. If something leaks out about Union Pacific cutting 20 to 30% of the supply chain on the railways, they own the media to stop it where that information doesn't get out. They make sure the reporters don't go to the rail yards and ask questions and report on what's going on. If there's anything negative about any of these companies that they own, they stop it before it can hit the TV screen or hit the printer. They stop it ahead of time and then strategize to send it in an opposite direction where nobody's looking, or they come up with some new hype topic where everybody's distracted about a celebrity shitting in another celebrity's bed. It's all over. You look at the views of the WEF forum, the World Economic Forum meeting back in May, and you see that they only have 150,000 views, 200,000 views on this one. But then you go and you look at all these other ones like Johnny Depp and R. Kelly and the Biden signing the gun law, and there's millions of views on it. Mm-hmm. So their plan is working. They extracted us enough that nobody knows who these people are, and nobody cares. Everybody thinks, oh no, the government. The government's got our back. They're gonna, nothing's gonna happen. The government's gonna stop anything bad from happening. They got the FDA and all these other, alphabet companies that are gonna come in and save us from these evil people. But what nobody realizes, because they haven't done the research, is that the government's involved.
Right.
We have our politicians like Al Gore. Al Gore attends the World Economic Forum every single year, and then BlackRock, the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, he attends it, and the BlackRock owns a piece of everything, and they own controlling interest in every company that they're a part of. And so now they not only own all these companies, but they own the White House by having their people in the White House advising Biden on what to do. And I'm sure everybody has heard Biden come out and say that everything happening right now with our supply chain, the diesel and gas prices going up, this is part of the incredible transition. That is their plan. That's the same thing that Klaus Schwab, the director of the World Economic Forum, is saying. And it's the same thing that Larry Fink is saying to all of his employees in his annual letter.
Yeah.
So AT&T owns Time Warner, and so that's, we've talked about three different companies right now that control the media. Now going into the fourth one would be Comcast.
Comcast, correct. Yes. And with Comcast, what was interesting with Comcast is, and again, you can see, if you look at the diagram, you can see all of the companies Comcast that falls under Comcast, DreamWorks, Sci-Fi, NBC, CNBC, all of the different NBC entities, Peacock, Focus. These are big names here. Style. I mean, this is incredible. DreamWorks, Bravo. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. E Entertainment. Look at, I mean, it's incredible. So these are all the ones that Comcast has. And
yeah, they own a lot of different companies, and so they have a very broad, they have a huge reach right now, to reach out to every single,
right,
every single personality type of person. Not everybody watches every single one of these, but you divide us all up, and there's different ways to influence us, by the things that we're all interested in. And so why not own every single type of media outlet to reach every single type of person?
Right. Yeah. But if people could see the connection, if you look, this is one of the things I want people to see that I'm trying to build here, is that if you take each of the big six, we've talked about the first four, right? But watch what happens. So with National Amusements, which was our number one, their primary investors are Viacom and CBS. So they've got CBS. Then we've got Disney. Can you scroll back up to Disney again, Ross, real quick? The Disney bubble will be number 2 with Bob Iger.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, they got ABC. So National has CBS, Disney has ABC, right? ABC, ESPN. That's their main one, is ABC, right? ABC for big major, yeah. ABC News, ABC Studios, ABC Daytime. Okay, A&E. All right, so we got ABC. All right, so National has CBS, Disney has ABC, Time Warner, which was just recently, within the last couple of months, purchased by AT&T. They have CNN. That's their big conglomerate. Our number 3 was Time Warner, which is now AT&T. They've got CNN. If you go down to Comcast, Comcast has which one again, Ross? Can you go down to? Oh, Comcast has NBC, right? We just talked about. Yeah.
Time Warner. There's Comcast.
Yep. Now News Corp. If you go down to News Corp, number 5.
So News Corp.
At Rupert Murdoch. So News Corp has Fox. So News Corp is everything Fox, right? See all that?
Right.
Fox Classics, Fox Crime, Fox Movies, Foxes, and they have FX, Voyager, called Mundo, Nat Geo Wild. These are some common ones you guys can all see, right? So News Corp has Fox. And let's go to the last big of the big 6 media conglomerates. That would be Sony. Let's go to Sony.
Sony.
And there's our list for Sony. Sony's got True TV. Look at all the True that Sony has. Okay. And there's quite a few, actually. They're one of the smaller ones. If you scroll down just a smidge, you can see their music bubble is pretty big, because they do a lot with music. and whatnot. So, and there's their non-media and so forth. So anyway, my point is, if you go back, this is where we want to take everybody here for them to realize, to this aha moment, if you will. With the big six, the media conglomerates, you can see a pattern or trend, right? In each area is covering something. So, but the major mainstream media news outlets are divided throughout these big six media conglomerates. So National Amusements has CBS, Disney has ABC, Time Warner has CNN, Comcast has NBC, News Corp has all the Fox stuff, and Sony has True. So you look at these if you can see the pattern emerging, right? Like they all own, and if you look at each bubble that you scrolled through for these big six companies, you can see how every single one of them has one major media news outlet like CBS, CNN, Fox, whatever. And then they all have some type of sports, some type of music, some type of streaming device, whether it's Hulu or Peacock. There's streaming devices. They all have media, right? So each of the big six have a nice balance of TV, social media, newspaper, and music. So they're all balanced really quite well, between movies, television, everything's balanced. And so you go, okay, so if that's the case, these big six, this big six list of these media conglomerates, well, then you go, okay, well, in a capitalist society that we are, as the United States, which is a republic, we look at this as a capitalistic nation. What does this mean? So who owns these companies, right? Like, who are these big six? Who owns them? How do they get paid? How do they get their revenue? How do they get their money? Who are their investors? So I started digging into that, and all of the six major media companies that literally, these big six literally deliver 100% of what we see, nearly 100% of what we see on the internet, on social media, on our televisions, on our streaming devices, on our apps. The majority of it comes through these big six, right? So who's paying them? Who are their investors? Who's propping them up? Who's keeping them going? How does this all work? So I looked into all of this, and it comes back to underneath each one of these big six companies. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 going across your six media. If you were to draw spokes coming off of each one of those for all their investors, you would see things such as Capital Research Management, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Netflix, Abbott Laboratories, United Healthcare, Tesla, Philip Morris, Northrop Grumman. You'll see, and the list goes on. It just goes on and on, right? But the interesting thing is, these lists of all the investors that invest in or have are the shareholders in each of these big sixes are all the same. They're all the same. They're all the same companies. So all the major investors of one media outlet are essentially the same investors in all six of them. So the same investment companies are propping up the big six or the media conglomerate. So then you go into, well, who owns all these companies like Capital Research Management, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, United Health, Netflix, Abbott Labs, Northrop Grumman? Go through the list. The list is long, 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 which we can always provide references for. The major stockholders that prop up the major stockholders of the big six are all exclusively BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street Corporation. BlackRock being the largest of the three. So really, when you want to get down to who is controlling mainstream media and virtually everything that we consume from a media perspective, it goes back to BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street Corporation. Those three companies are the primary investors in all the companies that are the primary investors of the big media six. There's a layer between them just to keep it so diversified that they can't possibly fail. It's foolproof. It's genius. I mean, really. So
yeah, it's organized crime.
It is,
and they're getting away with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I wonder where they learned that from. You know, where, you know, it's funny you don't hear anything about the mob or, you know, the mafia anymore. You know, it's because
it's
because they've gone to the next level. They've become the businessmen that run all of our industries, and they've taken that strategy of organized crime and they've implemented it into the media. They've implemented it into our supply chain. You know, and all, you know, all the way, you know, into, you know, everything, you know, they're in every single part of our economy, through a strategic plan to control everyone. You control the media, you control the food, you control the people, and you control the outcome of our communities. Right.
Exactly. So if you look at this, so then what I did is I dialed it back another layer. This is like peeling an onion. All of this, it's so much. They're so protected by all of these layers. So I then peel back another layer and go, well, who are the investors of BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street Corporation? A little difficult to find Vanguard Group because I believe they said they were private. Oh, don't quote me on that. I have to look that back up. They were a little bit harder to dig up. But the primary investors of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street Group are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Anthony Fauci, Northrop Grumman. It just goes on. The list goes on and on and on. And it all goes back to those main people. It all goes back to all of that, and that's what's interesting. And then when you look at Union Pacific, who is struggling because they were told, which we aired a show about recently in the recent past, about how Union Pacific was being basically ordered to reduce DEF and diesel production by 20 to 30%. So I looked into who are the principal or primary investors in Union Pacific, and it's BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street Corporation. So they also own Union Pacific, who is a company responsible for bringing the better part of our fuel, our diesel fuel and DEF, to our country and distributing it so that our truckers have fuel. They're owned again by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
And which, you know, we haven't heard from, you know, the CEO of Union Pacific. You know, nobody from that company has actually come out and said anything about how they went to everybody across the board and said, we're going to cut you guys by 20 to 30%. You know, thank God for the CEO of Pilot and Flying J for coming out and, you know, ahead of time. You know, he came out back in April and said, we are going to run into some serious issues if something isn't done about this. You know, we need the DEF is going to be cut, you know, by 20 to 30%. Well, actually for Pilot and Flying J, it's going to be cut by 50%. And so they were stressing to the rail board that their trucks need the DEF to get the diesel and the gas to the gas stations.
Right.
So now not only are not only is the government saying, oh, it's Russia's fault that our diesel prices and everything are going up, but what it really is the controlling interest of Union Pacific are cutting everything by 20 to 30%, so their prices go up, so they can make a higher profit. I mean, they're making record profits on gas and diesel and all the fuels right now. So why would they stop? It's not affecting them, because if you look into these companies, they're not owned by Americans. They're owned by foreign companies, foreign interests. So as long as those companies and other countries are making money, they don't care how it's affecting and making us suffer here in the United States, because that's the point of capitalism, right? Making money.
Exactly.
And that's what they're going to keep doing until we do something about it. And our government should have stepped in a long time ago and said, no, you're not gonna order these companies to do these things just so you can make a higher profit. And at the same time, the country should be looking into all of these institutional investment groups like BlackRock and asking them why they own this much of every single company across the board. How is that legal for them to own controlling interest in every industry?
Right.
That's way too much power for one company to have at all. And the reason why it's not being done, especially over the past 2 years, is because the Biden administration is in on it. They want this incredible transition to happen. They want us to get away from fossil fuels. Biden campaigned on it, that he was going to get rid of all of our fossil fuels. So why is he going to go back on what, that's one promise he might actually be able to commit, is transferring us all over to this new electric grid that isn't even strong enough to power the United States. They're not even ready for it, but it's fine, because Americans are going to suffer while they make a profit. That's what it's all about. The royalty across the world, aka the elite, making money and living the lives they're living, and they don't care that they're changing our lives and making it harder on us and making us suffer, because that's what they want. They want us to suffer, so we're dependent on them, so that they can keep moving forward with their agenda. And one day we won't be able to own a single thing, because these people have distracted us for long enough that they've been able to come in and buy every single thing across the board and control us even more.
Right. Correct. And one of the things that we should mention as well that's really important is that there are currently 3 BlackRock investors that serve on Biden's cabinet. Right. Yeah, the same BlackRock that talks about the transition too. Every company and every industry needs to make this transition. And either you'll lead yourself, you'll lead your own company into this transition, or they will come in and lead it for you. And what that translates into, they will come in and buy your company after making your company suffer enough where you can't compete with their industry, with their big companies. They're going to come in and buy you for pennies on the dollar and put you out of business and make you go work for them. Right. That's their goal. Their goal is to make our lives everything in our lives a lease. We have to lease everything from them. We're never going to be able to own our own business 100% if it's up to these people. And if nobody does anything, nobody stands up against it, they're just going to keep moving forward with their agenda. When is it going to be enough for everybody? How many companies do you have to see go under? How many mom and pop restaurants, in your small town have to go under, for you guys to wake up, for people to open their eyes and see, there's something going on. Why aren't we being told about, BlackRock and these other institutional investment groups that are coming in and buying up everything? Correct.
Where's the media coverage on that?
Correct. And the fact that 3 of BlackRock's investors serve on Biden's cabinet. I mean, so they're influencing or it's just such a conflict of interest. How are you serving on Biden's cabinet when you're an investment firm, and yet you're an investment firm that owns every single one of the 6 media conglomerates and owns Union Pacific Railway, that's controlling the dissemination of our diesel and DEF. Like this, these are, and also the major, BlackRock's the major investor, BlackRock and Vanguard are the major investors in Abbott Laboratories and Nestle as well, which is where we're having baby formula shortages. And Bill Gates is also a major investor in BlackRock, and he's the one that is creating simulated baby formula, synthetic baby formula, should be ready in 2 to 3 years, they said. And he also owns the majority of commercial farmland that we have, which is all of a sudden we're losing our crops, we're losing our manufacturing plants. So the food shortages, baby formula shortages, diesel, gas shortages, all of these shortages are coming from companies that ultimately are owned by BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street. And these are the companies, you know, is particularly BlackRock, that are ultimately the major shareholders in all of these companies that are having massive shortages. And interestingly, the solution that this appears to be on the horizon is Bill Gates's synthetic baby formula. And, you know, Bill Gates is genetically engineered in a laboratory fake meat, steak meat that's supposed to be just like it, so we can reduce carbon emissions and reduce the cattle population. And yet we've got livestock turning up dead by the hundreds. So, you know, it's odd. Like, you know, our processing plants are burning up, our animals are dying. We have no formula. There's a formula shortage. All of these things are happening, but yet it all goes back to the same people. BlackRock and Gates and Fauci, they all own each other. They're all in bed with each other. And it's like modern day mafia, like you said, Ross. It's incredible. I mean, how do you?
Yeah, no, they're going to keep doing it. You know, the plant's burning down. You know, I don't know what investigations are being done into that, but there needs to be investigations to see, you know, how much that was intentional arson. You know, I mean, there's only so many coincidences that can happen, you know, with the supply chain, until, you know, something comes up, you know, in an investigation that proves that it was done intentionally. You know, right. Just like with the cattle dying out in Kansas, you know, we've talked to you know, John Bird in Lake City in our past episode about that, and you know, he runs a 400-acre dairy farm. He doesn't see how that happened. You know, there's, you know, in Florida it's 100 degrees every single day with 100% humidity. You know, which makes it feel a lot worse with the humidity, and they have never ran into that issue. It's a little funny that there was a, you know, biological disease research lab for livestock, you know, a couple hours away from where those were dropping at. Yeah, and right. then you know, now with you know, with our gas prices going up, the you know, the freight rates going down, so certain freight isn't transported across the country, you know, because they're not paying enough. It all leads back to BlackRock. You know, which, you know, from our research that we've done, you know, it leads back to the WF, you know, it leads back to these non-government organizations that are recognized by other countries as other international bodies. You know, so they recognize companies like CDC, the NIH, the WHO, the WEF. They recognize all these companies, all these organizations. They recognize them as countries. You know, that's how they see them, and that's the kind of power they've given to these companies. You know, like the World Health Organization. You know, with Abbott Industries, we found out that they were Abbott Industries is the largest COVID-19 test provider in the United States, and at the same time, they caused a baby formula shortage. there's something, a little fishy about that situation. And you look into it, you got the elite involved. Why is it every time that there's something happening in our economy that the elite are involved in some way, and you have these CEOs just coming out and just saying, this is a part of the transition. Get with it or get left behind.
Right.
And,
Yep.
and we don't care. We don't care if you don't have the food to feed your pets or your family. They don't care because it's not affecting any of these people directly. The only thing they care about is bringing forward this new Green Deal and transferring everything over to electric, green, new climate change society where they could control everybody through fear. Because if the world's going to end, you have to listen to these people. They create chaos. They could come up with a solution, like Bill Gates with the synthetic formula and now the synthetic meat. They have solutions to every single problem we're having.
Right.
Like, doesn't that sound a little funny to y'all? Like,
Yeah.
How is it that they already have a solution before the problem even happened? Or while it's happened, they've already come up with a new solution.
Right. Well, and that's the same thing that goes with the COVID vaccine. They had the vaccine ready in 2019. They had that vaccine ready to go before they said they did. It was ready. They planned for that. They knew they were rolling that virus out. They knew what was going on, and that's why they didn't just come up with it. That's why it showed. I mean, they were working on that. They had that ready. They had that ready to go. They've already shown that to be true. So
yeah, and there's a reason behind that. All these same people that we're talking about have all come out and talked about population control. The world is too populated. They need to do something to control the birth rate in every country. Yeah, it's what all this is about, is controlling every aspect of our lives, so that one day these people can declare themselves royalty, and we're the peasants. They can control everything that we do because they already have everything in place to do it. And
Right.
they're never gonna stop unless we actually stand up and we stop them ourselves, because our government isn't gonna do it. The government's involved. Anyway, from what we've looked at, there's over 50 of our politicians that show up at the World Economic Forum every single year.
oh yeah.
And they meet with these people, and if you look into the speeches that they make, they talk about collaborating and meeting with each other and talk about different issues. So they're meeting with each other and saying, this is working in my country, you should try it in your country to further this part of the agenda. Oh, you're having a problem with that? Oh, I got a solution for that too. Let's create a little bit of chaos and then come in and save the day like you're a superhero. When are people going to wake up that this keeps happening over and over and over again, that we have to do something about it? Through my entire life, there's always been chaos and a solution. If you look back into how the elite got started, they've been around for a long time. You look into the John Rockefeller family. When Rockefeller Jr. started the pharmaceutical industry, nobody trusted them. They had to build up their trust into the people. So one of the best ways to build a business and to become successful is to give away something for free. So what they did was they created chaos. I know everybody's probably heard Southern Americans are a bunch of dumb rednecks. They're all stupid and lazy. That's a stereotype that's gone on for years. And that stereotype actually came from the pharmaceutical industry when they came in and said, oh, you guys are dumb and lazy because you're not wearing shoes. So you actually have a worm. I think it's like hookworm or something like that. You have hookworm. So we came up with a vaccine to make where you're not dumb and lazy anymore. But you got to put shoes on. Make sure you wear shoes, and you won't be dumb and lazy. You're going to be able to work like everybody else in the country. All you have to do is take this vaccine. And over the period of 10 years, they got over 800,000 people to take that vaccine. So this pandemic playbook that we've all been going through over the past 2 years, they've done it many times before. This was when they did this vaccine for the Southerners. It was about 4 years before the flu came out. So they got everybody on their side. Most of everybody in the North was on board with their vaccines. But then here comes the flu. You know, it's every few years they came out with something to get you to trust them more and more and more. And they would manipulate the next generation into trusting the pharmaceutical industry. And that's the same thing they're doing now again with everything else, with this new synthetic formula, the synthetic meat. You know, oh, you're not going to be able to trust the ranchers because they're too dumb to produce enough meat for the entire country. Here, you know, they can't even stop their cows from dying. You know, how are you going to be able to trust these people? But you know what? You can trust us because we can just produce this out of thin air, and you guys can eat this.
Sure.
You know, and so you come in, you control the food, you control the people.
Uh-huh.
That's the same thing. Why they're creating these commercial farms is because once you control the food, you control the people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and it certainly seems like that's the direction they're looking to go, and it's concerning. It's concerning for sure, and you know, I think so much of the truth about what they're doing and what has been found out. I mean, on every level, from way back, even 20, 30 years ago, even 40 years ago, things we're finding out now that have been hidden or covered up because by the media, because they essentially could be punished, if you will, by who their principal investors are. I mean, that's the thing, you know, money makes the world go round is and that's what they say, you know, and it may not buy you happiness, but it'll certainly buy you a whole lot of power and control. And that's exactly what it has done. And these extremely wealthy, elite people in our country have literally consumed all of our social media access. They control all of it. They own all of it. They're the principal investors of it. This BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street Group, you go back to them and you look at who their primary investors are, and it's always the same group of people. You know, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, the Obamas, the Bushes. You go back and look, they're all the principal, these foundations and these businesses are all the principal investors of BlackRock and these big companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, they all go back, and those all go back to the people that own those companies. So they've learned how to multi-layer it to keep it so highly diversified that A, they're not essentially committing any crimes, and B, they've created such a network of diversification that you can't knock them down. There's no way to, I mean, what do you do? So I mean,
yeah, no, with the laws in place, you know, they found the way to work around everything. You know, and you know, it's not only the World Economic Forum that these elite that own the media. It's not only that one meeting that they meet at. It's not just once a year. You know, they have, you know, the Bilderberg Group that they meet once a year, and then there's other committees that are meeting monthly and throughout the year. So you know, even if they don't. You know, they don't see the person. You know, I doubt they're scared to, you know, send emails saying, you know, talk about their plans anyway. But they still meet in person with each other throughout the entire year. You know, more likely on a monthly, you know, regular basis on how to further their agenda and, you know, get communications across to who they needed to get it across to.
sure.
Yeah, they're never going to stop doing this. You know, they're going to keep meeting because they've got away with it for so long. You know, if they need to change a law, if there's a law in the way, you know, they can have this company lobby this politician, and at the same time, they can lobby that same politician or another one from another company, and so they have this network of how to do this that they're pretty unstoppable right now. They can just go in and change our country, change our country but imagine a smaller country of what they can do in that country with this power. Like for Facebook, for instance, Facebook has more money than some countries across the world. So imagine that power. You come into into a smaller country with all that money, you own them. You own that country, and you can send them in whatever direction you want to. When is somebody in our government? When are one of these politicians going to do something? They've become so good at the smoke and mirror effect that even our politicians are falling for the distractions the same as everybody else.
Right.
One of the politicians that I speak to, I've asked them, about this kind of stuff, and they were more worried about a gun law vote where they knew they were going to vote no on it, but they were devoting all their time to that and that only. They didn't have any other time to worry about the baby formula or the DEF shortage or any of these manufactured shortages. They were too distracted too. Yeah. So it doesn't only stop at just us the people. It goes all the way into our politicians, into our government. These people are so distracted that they might not even know what's actually going on with the
right. Yeah.
And the elite. The elite, we hear about some of these politicians talking about the globalist elite. The globalist elite, who are they? They never go into detail about who these people actually are. And everybody's too distracted to do the research. But it's time to stop watching the media. It's time to stop letting yourself be distracted, because you're letting yourself. Yeah, it's not something that you're trying to control. You're just disregarding your self-control and just going along with the distraction, when you could actually go and look into the elite and find exactly what they're doing, where they're doing it at, and who's involved. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And they're there. You can even look that up. They have a whole website, which I can give to you, Ross. You can look that up. There's a whole list. If you look, there's a whole list of information on the global elite, their agenda, and the false flag terrorism that's been created. And the sites have been verified in one of these articles that I found with regard to all of that information. So it's interesting to see, when you really take the time to sit down and look into things, what you'll find with all of that.
And they'll come out and they'll act like they're looking out for us. They're painting the picture. That's it for now, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching us on our coverage of the media and the elite that own them. Our next episode will be a deeper dive into the World Economic Forum and the elite that join those meetings every single year and control everything that affects all of our lives. Thank you for joining us. Again, thank you, Anjanette, our co-host. She'll be on our show with us, Justice for America. Please subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook and our other social media platforms. And have a good night. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, Anjanette. God bless y'all.